It's time. It is that time, Jesse. Are you ready for rapid fire, my friend?
Let's do the rapid fire and get on out, baby.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. All right, let's see here. Let me pull it up. I said, are you ready? And I don't even have it pulled up. So that's going to be obviously a bit of a problem. All right, here we go.
Wait,
First,
right
go
before
ahead.
you go, I thought there's one Savage Fitness says since Notre Dame beat Clemson and North Carolina and they're playing for the ACC championship, does that make Notre Dame ACC champs? I mean, kind of de facto. You
Duh.
throw in 27 straight against ACC opponents. I
Right.
mean, we run the ACC, but rapid fire. Sorry, got
No, no,
distracted.
no. You're 100% right. There is no doubt about that. Notre Dame is the ACC champion. I'm sorry. So you just
Take
send the
the
trophy
crown.
to South Bend. That's where it belongs. All right. Last week, Jess, we talked about beating Clemson wouldn't erase the losses to Marshall or Stanford. How do you feel about that today after the game against Clemson on Saturday night?
So for me, Clemson erases one of them. It doesn't erase both of them. And I say that because going into the season, I thought Notre Dame's honest record would be 10-2, right? I thought that they would handle most of the games and potentially lose to the combination of, Clemson, USC, or maybe a random one in there that kind of falls through the cracks. And so I was okay with, not okay, but with the potential of two losses was kind of, the mindset that I was going into the season. And then when you lose to a team like Marshall and Stanford, two teams that are just kind of inexcusable losses, then you turn around and beat the team that, largely, I would say 90% of the country said would beat Clemson at the beginning of this, or a team that in Clemson that most people said that would beat Notre Dame. I'm okay with swapping one of those out. Those ones kind of, cancel out for me. But there's still the one kind of ugly loss that remains. And USC doesn't really do anything for me either, because at the beginning of the season, I thought that USC was a toss-up, and I thought Notre Dame I thought it'd be a very close game, and I thought Notre Dame had a very good chance to win that game kind of regardless. So for me, Clemson, the big win against Clemson, yeah, it does kind of take the sting away and erases one of those bad losses. I wouldn't say both of them, but it takes away one of them, but also brings back the frustration of Stanford, really? But you could do this to number 4 Clemson, the number 10 defensive line in the country, averaging 85 yards a game, multiple defensive, linemen who are projected to go to the NFL, and then, that performance against Stanford. So, yes, it gets rid of one of them, but it doesn't erase all of it.
The word erase, I think, is what I have the hardest time with, because
maybe divert.
Yeah, I mean, it takes some of the sour taste out of your mouth, right? It makes it more palatable, I guess, because now we're riding high on the win that they had on Saturday night. We're riding high on the fact that they're on a win streak. We're riding high on the fact that they should win the next 3 games and finish the season 9-3. I had a great debate with one of my buddies last night, and we were talking about how most people thought that Notre Dame was going to be 9-3 this year. And there's a good chance that Notre Dame's going to be 9-3 this year.
Just not to who you thought they would be.
I said, but not all 9-3s are created equal, man. Like, you can't.
There's layers to it.
If you lose to Ohio State, Clemson, and USC, for example, and you're 9-3, is that a successful season? First year head coach, all that stuff. But if you lose to Ohio State, Marshall, and Stanford, but you beat all these ranked teams, it's like, what did we just witness? Like, that is not success. That's just
the most roundabout 9-3 way.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, 9-3 is palatable. 9-3 is something that you can build on. I would much rather have it to be where they lost their games early and they finish off winning, which I'm cool with, because that can launch you into the offseason. It's going to help in recruiting. It's going to do all of those things that, remember the feelings we all had in the offseason with recruiting and going into the spring and coming out of the spring. We were all just riding high. You can still do that coming off of a 9-3 season. And someday, I'm hoping, when we're celebrating a national championship, we can look back at Marcus Freeman's first year and be like, yeah, remember that 9-3 year when they lost to Stanford and Marshall? Those were just, build-up moments. That just made us stronger and da-da-da-da-da, and we won a national championship and, that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that that's what we're able to look back on, but I just can't erase those 2 losses. Like, erase is too strong of a word for me. But I'm very happy that they beat Clemson. That was one of the best nights that we've had in a long time. And Marcus Freeman said it's like moments like this are few and far between. So you have to enjoy it. I'm still enjoying it. There's no doubt about that. So doesn't erase, but it definitely makes it more palatable. That's for sure.
Yeah, I started thinking about, I went to a lot of games between, let's see here, like 2000 and probably like 4 to like 2014. And even after that, I still would come back to a lot of games. And I can't remember, this, I was so jealous and envious because I missed, this is one of the most, biggest wins in a 15-year span. And I went to a lot of those games and a lot of, I watched the Bush push happen. I watched, the ups and downs. And of course there was big wins sprinkled in there, but nothing to this magnitude. So it was just really, really awesome to see overall.
No doubt. All right. Buy or sell Saturday's game as the best for linebacker JD Bertrand in his career?
Oh, that is 100% buy for Mr. Bertrand. And I think what makes it that is because, the stage itself, right? Like that, it's like if a regular season, baseball player has kind of just an average season, but he goes on to win like the World Series MVP, he stepped up when it mattered the most. And I feel like that was what Bertrand did in this game is he stepped up when his team needed him the most as captain, as a leader, made big plays, the huge tackle for loss that set, Clemson up for a 3rd and long in a certain situation. I know he had, I think around like 9 tackles, couple tackles for loss, just overall a very sound defensive game. And when it mattered the most. So I'm 100% buy on this.
Yeah, I mean, he had 12 total tackles, 9 solos. I mean, a sack, 2 tackles for loss. I mean, it was by far from an aesthetic standpoint, from an execution standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. I think you make a great point there, Jess, about how as the team captain, he stepped up in the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, they challenged him to be physical and rally around the ball, and that's what he did all game. And you as a leader, you set an example, and if you want everyone else to do it, and everyone's looking up to you, that's a huge, huge emphasis.
No doubt about it. And he stepped up when they needed him the most. And I don't think he was ever as bad as some of the fans thought that he was. Right.
Yeah.
But he was struggling. There were times where he was struggling.
Well, think of the amount of defenses that he's gone through in X amount of years, schemes, being bounced around. It's hard to get your footing. And I think this is kind of his footing game. We finally seen him kind of fit in the footing of, who he is as a linebacker.
Yep. I completely agree with you. So he was never as bad, but he played a tremendous game on Saturday night. By far his best game in a Notre Dame uniform. And I'm super stoked for him, to be honest with you. So I'm proud of him. I'm happy for him. It was great. All right, fill in the blank. It's blank that the Detroit Lions have announced Barry Sanders will get a statue next season.
It is amazing that Barry Sanders is going to get his statue out there. Obviously, he's, an all-time Lions legend, very iconic. I have a lot of Lions friends, like, again, because Michigan, I lived up in Michigan. I have Lions. I know about, the inner workings of these Lions. It's always fun because I get to poke at, the Michigan being just not great enough and the Lions always kind of sucking. And most of the time it's a win for me. But I just think it's great overall for the fan base because, and I'm not trying to, be, overly rude here, but it's just the facts. They don't have a lot of success as a franchise. They don't have a lot of playoff success as a franchise. And, I think that it's something that gives, like I said, the fan base something to be excited about. There obviously will be an unveiling, that kind of stuff. So overall, I think it's a great thing for the Lions. I just hope that they do something and have some success here soon. I always think that they're right on that verge of, okay, this is when the Lions kind of break the tipping point and, flip to going back to the being above average, but it just hasn't been there yet.
For me, the fill in the blank is it's been way too long. I don't understand why it took so long for them. I mean, what have they had to celebrate where they couldn't? I mean, usually when they do something like this, it's like, okay, we need to get something going here. We need to pump up the fan base. We need to, bring some people back in, whatever. They haven't been any good since he retired. They weren't even all that great when he played. And so what were they waiting for? Do you know the year that he retired, Jesse?
No, do you?
I looked it up. He graduated. He retired the year I graduated high school. 1999. Wow. Okay. Over 20 years ago. And you're just now getting around to building this man a statue. I'm not well versed in Lions lore, okay? But he was arguably the best Lion of all time. And it took
Right.
you over 20 years to build that man a statue. Come on now.
It reminds me of a very similar Cowboy situation that Jerry Jones hasn't quite retired Jimmy Johnson yet into the Ring of Honor. And it's just like, what are you doing?
Seriously.
What is going on here?
Seriously, you're not wrong there.
And that's how I feel about Barry Sanders as well. And his statue taking, like you said, over 20 years.
I mean, he was unbelievable to watch. I mean, I was right in my high school career, and I would watch him all the time. And because, you either got Bears, Lions, or Colts games around here. So I watched a lot of Lions football when I was in high school. And watching that man do his thing it's unbelievable. And if anybody out there doesn't know about Barry Sanders, and I can't imagine you'd be in this chat if you didn't, but if you don't, just YouTube the man and just watch that dude run. Holy
I mean, he
smokes.
stayed. The biggest thing, he stayed with a Detroit man through and through. Played 10 seasons with only Detroit and 10 seasons as a running back. That's like unheard of. The longevity, the dominance, and then staying with one team, the loyalty. It's like, I'm more and more talking myself into this, like with Drew Pine. Like, what have they been doing for so long? Is it a money issue? Like, what?
Right.
Are you guys so bad you haven't had any fans to come to the stadium and you got no funds to, build the GOAT of your franchise a statue?
Oh, they could have come up with a collection and gotten him a statue 15 years ago.
Man, the fans would have started a GoFundMe if they knew that was the case.
Because, I mean, what is it, 5 years after you retire that you can go into the Hall of Fame?
I think it's something close to that.
Isn't it? Okay, let's see here. Barry Sanders Hall of Fame. Let's see here. Of course, it doesn't come up right there. I don't know when he went into the Hall of Fame, but 2003. So yeah, 4 years, maybe even. Okay, that's ridiculous. So he goes into the Hall of Fame, and 20 years later, you build him a statue at his own facility.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it. All right, let's move on to something that's not going to annoy me as much. Well, no, it will because of the first two words I'm about to say. Tom Brady became the first quarterback in NFL history to eclipse 100,000 passing yards in the regular season and postseason combined. He also notched his 43rd career fourth quarter comeback, tying Peyton Manning for the most by an NFL starting quarterback. Which record is a bigger deal?
This is a tough one because obviously fourth quarter comebacks to me it's like a balancing scale. One, you're put in the position to have to come back, right? And so it's a combination of whatever other factors led to that point. But that's kind of like your clutch stat or your clutch rating, right? Like,
yeah, right.
You get the ball back and you drive down the field and you win the game. And that's probably what separates people like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and the rest of the other quarterbacks is they're often in the situation. They just fail to do so. And so that's kind of like your clutch rating overall is how I kind of, analyze that one. And then the passing yards, yeah, it's up there because, no one's ever done it, but the man has played for like 25 years. Like it's going to come eventually. Right. And
he's played in the NFL. He's been in the NFL longer than years he was alive, not playing in the NFL.
Right. So like those things are naturally going to compile. It's just kind of over time, getting more games. And so I actually think that the comebacks is more important because like I said, like that's what's defining you. That's your clutch rate. That's your win. You're single-handedly kind of winning the game at that point as you're orchestrating the offense down the field. So I'm going to take that is the bigger deal in terms of Tom Brady's success.
I agree with you. And to be honest with you, what jumped off the page to me as far as this question was concerned was the fact that he tied Peyton Manning, who's been retired for a while.
That shows how Peyton was just comeback after comeback.
And, part of that is because maybe the Colts weren't as good and he's having to come back more often. And the Patriots were better and probably weren't trailing at the end of games. Okay, I get all of that for sure. But the fact that you're just now breaking, potentially, he hasn't done it yet, tying one of Peyton Manning's records is just kind of mind-boggling to me. That tells me how good Peyton Manning was. I mean, Peyton Manning, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. Maybe it's going to tick people off. He's a better quarterback from a physicality standpoint. He's just a better quarterback. Tom Brady did it better in the system and with the players around him and his nutrition and all of that stuff, right? But Peyton Manning, man, 43 comeback wins, and he's been retired for a really long time. It took this long for Tom Brady to tie him. I think that's probably the most impressive. I will go with the clutch rating as well, and I will say that the comeback wins is a more impressive record. But at this point, man, Tom Brady is just racking up like stats from a longevity standpoint,
right?
And
when you're given so many opportunities, you're just gonna get there eventually,
right? I mean, 100,000 passing yards is ridiculous,
right?
I mean,
there's no reason to downplay that.
No, that's ridiculous. And yes, it's an accumulation stat, obviously, but he's still the only one to ever do it. And I would venture to guess he's probably the only one that's going to do it.
Yeah,
so, I mean, that's pretty much impressible. Impressible? That's not a word. Impressive. Okay, let's see here. Do I have any more written down? No. So here's the one that I had written down over here. Okay. Frank Reich from the Colts was let go today. And Jeff Saturday is now the interim head coach for the Colts. On a scale of 1 to 10, what are your thoughts on the former center for Peyton Manning as now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts?
So 10 being like out of the park, yes, and 1 being like, what the hell are you doing? I'm at a solid like 4 here because I really don't understand this move. I know Jeff Saturday has been okay. First of all, let me backtrack a little bit. I think it was time for Frank to be let go. First of all, that's big. Number one. I agree.
Way too many games they shouldn't have lost.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going on with Jonathan Taylor. I don't know what's going on with the offensive line. I know that they haven't had a steady quarterback, but again, the defense underperforming this year after being so much better last year. Jeff Saturday, though, like I saw a tweet today. He coached high school football 2 years ago. And granted, it's high school football. You can't really control what comes your way. But he was like 3-7 as a head coach in high school football. And I think that was his most recent head coaching experience. And now he's been a consultant for the Colts. So, I don't know. Consultant's such a broad term. Like, what is his day-to-day task? Like, what is he exactly consulting on? Right. But he's had his hand in the cookie jar. And so that was enough for them to say, okay, Jeff Saturday obviously played through the era with Peyton Manning, was an offensive lineman, but he's the in-house guy, the lovable guy. And I think it makes sense on those terms, but I don't know. I get it. It's an interim head coach. So in the long run, does it really matter? Right. Because I think we're past week 9 now. So we're basically at the halfway point of the NFL season. And, the Colts aren't really potentially going to be competing for that division too much. So I don't know. I'm still stuck on a 4 because the overall head coaching experience, like, is this just giving him like, hey, okay, we know that this not really much writing. Here's your shot. Like, if you run with it, you run with it. He fits the role. He fits being the Colts Indianapolis man. I don't know, but it was a very interesting decision in the end. And I'm very excited now to see how it turns out.
Yeah, I don't know. He wasn't an actual coach on the staff, correct? He was
he's
like
just a consultant,
front office kind of consultant guy, and all of a sudden now you're the head coach. Like, you want to thrust. You want to talk about a rise to fame. I'm looking at his timeline here. He resigned as the head coach of a high school in 2020, Valentine's Day of 2020. And now November 7th, 2022, you're the head coach of an NFL football team.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd like to be that guy. I don't know about you, Vince.
Holy moly. And again, I get it from a PR standpoint, and the Colts are usually pretty good at PR and doing that whole thing. I get all that. I put it at like a 2 or a 3, if I'm being honest. I think he is a bright guy. I enjoyed listening to him when he worked for ESPN and he would break some stuff down and, things like that. And to be an offensive lineman, you got to be smart anyway. Right. And so I appreciate offensive linemen for that matter. But dang, man, that's the move. I'm just surprised because it's still November. You play into January. maybe maybe he brings them back and all of a sudden, they're in the playoffs or something. That would be amazing and that would be fantastic. I'm sure all the Colts fans around here would be excited, but holy moly, that's the move. Come on, man.
Chi-Town got it right. It just felt lazy.
Yes, I agree completely. All right, Jess, we got a couple of super chats. Let's get to these before we head on out of here. First from Tyler Evans. Thank you for the super chat, Tyler. He says, what point in the game do you guys feel that Notre Dame locked up the win against Clemson? Go.
Oh, man. I really liked the touchdown right before half, and then Clemson retaliating, Notre Dame just being like, that's the best you got right now? We have bigger things to worry about than responding to this pettiness that you have going on right now. I'd say either that point or, when they scored the third touchdown and Clemson's going down the field via, penalties, these obscure penalties. And Notre Dame says, instead of, penalties suck, especially on the defensive side when you're executing.
Yeah.
It gets you kind of in a mental state and you're doing things right. And then to turn around and say, you know what, we're going to put our foot down and just take the ball away ourselves. Morrison, obviously, from there takes it back for a touchdown. So I felt in that kind of transition to right before halftime to the interception by Morrison, you could kind of pick any time in that range. But that's where I felt that it was locked up.
The fan in me felt pretty stinking confident after the block punt for a touchdown. And I know that's super early in the game, but it's
a tone setter.
Yes, that's exactly right. It felt very similar to Syracuse when Brandon Joseph took back the touchdown put back the interception for a touchdown in the first play of the game. Felt very similar to that. For the Syracuse game, from that point on, I was like, this is great. I was totally chill, relaxed. I was totally chill and relaxed after that first touchdown. I felt really good about it moving forward. The analyst in me would probably push it back to Benjamin Morrison's first interception. And then when they punched that in to go up 21-0. When they went up 21-0, it was like Syracuse doesn't have the chops to score 21 points. I just don't see them scoring 21. And so when they scored that touchdown, it was a short field. They went in there, punched it in. It's game over, And then, of course, that just got cemented even more on the 96-yard interception return. But that was just icing on the cake, man. No doubt about that. All right. Chief Brody, thank you for the super chat. Best believe that if the committee gets a chance to put a 3-loss LSU and a 3-loss Notre Dame in a New Year's Six bowl game, they're going to take it. I mean, if you're looking for eyeballs on the TV screen and you're looking for butts in the seats, that matchup would, of course, be ideal. I just don't see 2 3-loss teams in a New Year's Six game situation.
Hard to swing. As alluring as it would be with Notre Dame, LSU, Freeman, Kelly, all of it that goes along with it and how much it would sell. I don't think they can get away with 2 3-loss teams.
Yeah.
Like you were saying.
Yeah. It's going to be really, really tough. I mean, maybe. I mean, it's possible, but look, I'm here for it. I would love for that to be the matchup.
I'd love the better bowl game. Sign me up.
Absolutely. And, Notre Dame has played LSU in bowl games. This would be the 3rd time in 6 years.
Good success rate.
Or something like that. And they're undefeated. So, I mean, I'll take it, and then just the icing on the cake of who you would beat. That'd be awesome.
Whoa.
Just saying. All right. Relic Q, thanks for the super chat. I may be out of the loop, but with the recent success and the team playing well, is there any chance that we can still get/flip a quarterback in this year's class? Well, if they get a quarterback in this year's class, it's going to be a flip. There's nobody that is uncommitted that I think is a take for Notre Dame right now in the 23 class. So if they get one, it'll be a flip. I know that obviously this is more of a question for Ryan when he's on, but at the same time, I do know that they are recruiting quarterbacks. No doubt about it. They're not giving up on that position. They want a quarterback in this class, and they're not just going to take a body, right? They want an actual quarterback in this class, somebody that they feel they can win with. So can they? Yes. Will they? I don't know. It's possible. We'll see.
Yeah, like you said, you don't just hand pluck quarterbacks for the sake of it. These are guys that are, especially the quarterback position, you're giving scholarship to, right? A big chunk. You're not going to take away from other players in your overall scholarships just to give, a quarterback a scholarship for a scholarship. And the same comes true with the portal. You find guys who are going to fit your offense and what you're trying to run. And so that also factors into it. But that's more of what you were talking about with Ryan's aspects of things, but just kind of my general thought on it.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right, next from Connor Patton, our buddy. Thanks for the super chat, my man. He says, you guys are awesome. Thanks for the great coverage. Well,
those are the easiest ones.
Thank you, Connor. Appreciate
it. Yeah, thank you. You're the best.
That's right. Joe Poppity. Hey, guys. Awesome job tonight. Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it. I hope you're recovering from the Phillies' loss in the World Series. But, hey, man.
I was rooting for him.
You were in the World Series, and I was rooting for him, too. My guy, Kyle Schwarber, was there, obviously. I would have – and oh, gosh, why is his name escaping me? The other outfielder who used to play for the Cubs. Thank you very much. I was rooting for him, man. I wanted the Phillies to win that one, and they just couldn't get it done. But it is what it is. Joe says, still in the afterglow of the dominating win. If you could pick one play Saturday night when you think Clemson knew that they were in trouble, what would it be? So there you go. I think we already explained that one, Joe. But I appreciate the super chat very, 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 very much. There were a lot of plays.
Yeah, so exciting. For Joe's, I mean, to nail it down specifically, Clemson was 0-5 on third down going in the half. Notre Dame runs 10 straight times and pounds it in with 30 seconds left. That's when I think they knew that, oh boy, what have we gotten ourselves into?
I know, right?
To have just no offensive success and then to just get bullied 10 straight runs down the field. That had to be Dabo was like, well, I don't know. Anyone else got any ideas?
All right, we got one more super chat here from Relly Q. He says, should every starting AP ranking be the final rankings from the previous year? Your number 1, 2, 3, etc., and can defend your rank until proven otherwise. It's interesting. The problem is it's college, and if you lose certain guys, if you you lose some key guys to that ranking, I think it has to be taken into account. But at the same time, if you're losing guys, then the guys that you're replacing them with, you don't really know what they can do. And so maybe they're just as good, if not better, than the guys that they replaced. You never know, right? I wouldn't have a problem with that. And I think that there is a little bit of that actually does take place. You see a lot of teams getting a lot of respect for what they did previous years in the first preseason ranking. But that's why I like the college football rankings that don't come out until November. Yeah. Because you actually get an opportunity to see if these teams are any freaking good and you can rank them appropriately.
I'd almost be in favor of no rankings until we get to this point. Because it eliminates all preconceived notions, biases. Yep. We just let it all play out and then let the ranking. Everyone's just a pool. You're just gathering your ranking. You're working for your ranking. You're fighting for your ranking.
Absolutely.
And then you come out with like maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks in. You could push it back just a little bit. And then I'm almost be in favor of that idea, actually, now that I think about it.
I think it'd be fantastic because then you're actually seeing – because like I said, in college, there's so much turnover from year to year most of the time. And if you're a top team in the country, you're probably going to lose some guys to the NFL. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. And so you're going to have a lot of turnover. I like not having any rankings until November. So, we got another one from Joe.
Joe's on a roll.
Thanks, Joe, man. Really appreciate it. He says, A, so glad you pronounced my name right. And B, I wouldn't have taken Wheeler out. C, I found it humorous that Dabo didn't know how to act at the end of the game. It was like Brian said in the postgame show. I think he said it in the postgame show. It was like that scene in Miracle where the U.S. coach leans over and he looks at the Russian coach and he's like freaking out and he's like playing with his eyebrows. He's like, he doesn't know what to do because he's never been in that position before. Clemson's never been in that position. They've never been absolutely butt whooped like that, where all 3 phases of the game scored touchdowns against you. He didn't know what to do. It was great. It was great.
Yeah, and Joe, I agree with you. There's no reason to take Wheeler out of the game with your season on the line. Right. And then obviously the next guy comes in and gives up 3 runs. It's just very demoralizing when Wheeler's been your ace the entire season. But I think in the end, and I'm not trying to, throw any more, rain on you, but this just the Astros pitching took over towards the back end, and that proved to be the difference maker. The Phillies played great, and I just think they ran out of that one last kind of spark, and that's where the Astros pitching kind of took over.
Absolutely. But thanks, Joe. Really appreciate not only you being in the chat, listening. I do enjoy your rants on Facebook. I do enjoy it, man. I always knew what was going on in the World Series just by watching what Joe was saying on Facebook. So
there you go.
That was it was hilarious. So anyway, all right, Jess, that's going to do it for this edition of IB Nation Sports Talk. Make sure that you join the podcast tomorrow at 1:00 because Brian and I are going to be up, and we are going to be. I've got the day off. It's election day. Make sure you guys get out and vote. I've voted in every election since I've been 18. So make sure you get out and vote. It is your civic duty. This is coming from a former social studies teacher. I would say the same thing to all my students. I've been taking my kids to the voting booth ever since they were old enough to walk. So take your kids, go vote, do your civic duty. That way, well, you still will. But don't complain about what happens if you didn't vote. I will put it that way.
Yeah.
So make sure you tune in tomorrow at 1:00. So we'll have a podcast then. Jesse and Sean will be back at 6:00. And then Brian and I will be back again at 7:30 to break down the college football playoff rankings. So make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell. And we will all talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk Radio, as well as the Irish Breakdown podcast. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, everyone.